Yeah, it is, and it's been well, I guess it's surreal if I step back, but it's been such a consistent part of my life since I wrote it because I guess I'm sort of the face of it because I have a profile outside of Matilda, and because I'm, very relaxed speaking and stuff. In the end, the so much of the publicity over the years has been me talking about it. I flew to Florida and I've flown all over the world to kind of the Australian production. I flew around, so it's been a consistent topic for me. But interestingly, I never get sick of it because there's a reason why it's sort of become a classic, and it's because it's got all this depth to it. It's got so many great ideas in it. Not specifically talking about my score, which also I think stands up to time okay, but just the ideas, the themes are sort of universal, and then to have been what is odd about talking about the film is I had so little to do with it. I mean, obviously I was very involved in the decisions about the cuts in the songs, and I wrote the new tune, but really I didn't make the film. Matthew made the film, and Chris Nightingale did all the music and all the orchestration and the scores and all that. Not only do I think it's the best movie musical of the century, I think it's kind of the first proper big movie musical that I've seen in many, many years. Like it's got the scale of those old musicals like Oliver and shit, like it's like
Right.
the scale and the depth and the score and just how many songs there are and how much the songs are part of telling the story. They're not just let's stop and sing a pop song about love. It's like the songs are properly incorporated in to drive the narrative and to make you feel what you're meant to feel. I I'm a huge fan of Matthew Watches. Like I love him as an artist. I think he's an incredibly intelligent, very good artist, and I was friends with him while he was making Pride, which is his last film, and I thought he did a beautiful job on that. And so I guess I felt I was absolutely adamant that he be the film director to the extent that I had a voice in that conversation. It's by no means inevitable that the theatre director will direct the film. In fact, it's very unusual. But we all pushed very hard for that. So I was confident, but I was involved to the extent that I was getting rushes, like I was getting dailies. So I was starting to see shots and starting to see choreography and when he first sent Alicia and Lashana, I wasn't involved in their casting, but when he first started sending footage of them or recordings of their singing, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. But yeah, then you get to see an assemble of the whole film months and months later after watching all these just single shots of stuff. You get to see an assembly of the film. And at that point, it's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking when I see the first assembly of my own TV show. It's always hard to watch an assembly because it's not there yet. It's the bare bones of the thing, and I didn't realize how good it was going to be at that stage. I was like, oh, I think this will be good, but when I finally saw it, in fact, it's really only very recently that I saw it at the London Film Festival, but that was so much hoo-ha, and I was sort of, it was great, but it was only actually a couple of weeks ago at the opening in Australia when I first saw it in a cinema with full cinema sound, where I didn't have 100 people kind of asking me press questions. It was just a little opening, and I went, oh my God, this is good. It really, really is a special thing. I think it's quite bonkers and full of heart and complex and meaningful and very beautiful film, I think. It's a good question. I mean, I think given that I've always thought Quiet is the sort of most special song in the musical, and I just thought, how's he gonna do it? Like, what's his, and then I sort of saw this initial assemble of that scene where the balloon, which is all CG, obviously was just a pencil sketch, and they sort of plonked Matilda in this pencil sketch, and I was like, oh, she's going to be in a balloon? What's that about? But now when I watch it on the film and I look sideways and all these grown-ups are just crying, and it's quite hard to explain why they're crying. I think I know. There's lots of stuff going on there musically, but that peace in the middle of chaos is something that adults crave, So I think that's really special. And the other really big one for me is My House, which is the next song along. They walk home to Miss Honey's cottage, and Miss Honey's trying to explain why she lives in such a modest house, but really she's talking about herself. My House is a song about her, about her. It talks about a small but stubborn fire, this burning survival that she has despite her terrible past. But it's only during that show that that it finally lands, that this story that Matilda's been telling her is actually Miss Honey's story. And in the middle of that song, just after the key change, she starts singing the reprise of that B section, and when it's cold and bleak, I feel no fear. And it cuts back to the escapologist coming down the stairs and picking up a girl in his arms that previously was Matilda inserting herself into her own story, but now he realizes the young Miss Honey. And I just sob every single time. I think it's
Absolutely.
Beautiful filmmaking. Yeah. They shot that for days and days, and it was so good. And hopefully, a good percentage of people who watch that TikTok clip will see the film. I mean, that's what you hope. And that's the upside to Netflix. I mean, apart from the fact that Netflix allowed us to make this film at this scale, I want everyone to see this on the biggest screen they have with the best sound possible. The fantastic thing about Netflix is people can all watch it in their homes. So hopefully hundreds of millions of people will see this film, and hopefully TikTok will have been one of the gateway drugs to this film. But yeah, part of you is like all these people doing a dance, and they're all like, oh my God, Red Berry Girl. Like, oh my God, she's so hot right now. Like, POV when you're Red Berry Girl and all this. And you're like, this is like Ellen Kane took 25 years to accumulate the skills to be able to choreograph these. And this is like, it's not like a dance that appeared in the world. Like, someone made it. Like, there's this weird thing about the TikTok generation is it doesn't cross their mind that someone made this shit. They just,
right.
It's like, it must, but it's just not the way in which they communicate their admiration, So I was partly like going, God, you people are weird. And partly it's just pure joy watching people like learn a dance, and with all that energy, and to really admire just that few frames. I mean, you're right. They're not getting the tiniest percentage of even that song, let alone the complexity of the story and what it means and what that revolution means. Most of them wouldn't even been getting the pun, the revolting pun, the most simple pun that anyone's ever made in a song. They're just not hearing it. And I think none of that matters one jot, really. What matters is people are getting a kick out of something that I help make. And ideally it will. And it has done a huge job at raising people's awareness of this film. I think it's slightly more upside down than that, because I have a couple of specialties. One is the ability to articulate a lot of words in a short space of time. I'm like it's the same skill rappers have, but I'm way too white and middle class, So I do this patter, and I'm able to articulate ideas with words, and I can do it very quickly, and I can write songs that, in that genre. And I also am quite knowledgeable about logical philosophy and religion. It's just partly I studied it, and partly I'm autodidactic. I read a lot about belief and psychology and philosophy in my 20s, and it sort of intersected with me getting known as a comedian, so I talked a lot about those subjects. And I remember when I was doing writing for the orchestra show, I'm like, what's this show going to be? I'm writing for a symphony orchestra. and which is where the origin of that song was. And I thought I need another, because I'd written the Good Book for the show before, and the Good Book is a similar thing. It's like a satire of the idea of a literal interpretation of the Bible. And I thought I want to write another song like that, but this one's going to go through. It's basically Occam's razor, right? What are the more likely explanations than God did it? You know, and it's quite brutal, but it's actually just the beginning of logical reasoning. Is Occam's razor is a central idea. You know, what is the actual Occam's razor is actually the argument with the introduction of the least new assumptions is most likely to be correct, you know. And so I thought, if I applied Occam's razor to Sam's claim, I mean, this is so nerdy. I thought, what would I say? And I realized there's dozens of better explanations. And so I thought, well, I better say them as fast as possible. And yeah, it surprisingly became one of my best known songs because of its sort of ruthlessness. It is quite ruthless, or at least it's eviscerating. It is its own razor, you know. It just slices and dices. And so yeah, it was. And then I built the story around it, because the story, of course, is not very true. There was a guy called Sam who did say, well, my mum's, but there was the kind of telling the story slowly to make people think that maybe I really did have this Damascene moment, is how you set up the fall of the song.